Record. Let us continue. So again, our problem here, Dr. Smith examines daily exposure to a sun lamp. That's 1 hour, and no exposure impacts people's depression levels in the winter time. So you have to identify, class, kung alin dito ang dependent variable. Again, remember, the dependent variable is the outcome variable. So letter A, 1 hour exposure. Letter B, no exposure. Letter C, depression. What will be the outcome variable here? Okay, very good. Ano yung answer sa chat? Yeah, the correct answer is letter C, depression. Okay, the depression, the level of depression sa mga tao. Remember, class, ang iyahang gi-manipulate sa study ang level of exposure sa sun lamp. So kung nakita ninyo na siya category din na ay group nga na ay 1 hour nga exposure, tapos na apoy group na walay exposure to the sun lamp. And then ang iyahang gitanaw ang effect ato sa pagkaroon og depression sa ato ang sa iyahang respondents. Okay? So tama. That's letter C. Very good. Now number 2. That's the age of the child, 4, 5, or 6. That's the ages of the children, influence when children can learn to read. So letter A, the age of the child, or letter B, the level of reading. So which among the variables given is the dependent variable? So number 2, kasi nabi ay mga bata nga sayo magsugod og eskwela, di ba? So muna karon kung mag grade 1 na dapat 7 years old, di ba? Tama. Pero kani gina-check kung naabay effect ang age dito sa pag-learn nila sa reading. So yeah, tama po. Letter B also, the level of reading. So mo man ni ang manipulate sa study. Ang wala sa'yo gina-manipulate mo siya, gina-change siya, pwede siya. Kung age, naga-change ang age 4, 5, or 6. Tapos kung i-change ni mo na siya, unsa ang iyahang effect to another variable. So this time, it's the level of reading. Okay? So, number 3. Okay, very good, letter B. So number 3, time reading on exam performance. So ang gusto i-check sa researcher ang pag-read, ang time nga Google sa isa ka person dito sa pag-read, and then ang iyahang effect on the exam performance. So definitely the correct answer here is the exam performance. That's the dependent variable. Kasi this time again, we are checking for the time. Kung magbago ba ang time sa pagbasa, na ba siya effect dito sa performance sa students sa exam. So again, do not forget, the outcome is the dependent variable. And the one that is being manipulated in the study is the independent variable. So let me give you another example. Let me open it first. Let me check if I have here. Masters tests. Nonsense ako if I have an example here sa conceptual framework. Not that sure. Yeah, I have. Sige. So this one is an example of my conceptual framework. So as you can see, dili lang ni siya independent o dependent variable because I have the outcome here. So ang ginawa kasi, I have the dependent variables which are my plant materials kasi na ay grupo nga ang gihatag kay ang taro, or or the colocasia esculenta, and then naay group nga ang gihatag nga treatment kay katakataka. So these are being manipulated. That is why they are all independent variable. Now, what are my dependent variables? So actually, ang mga dependent variables nako kay katong mga results sa test. So like the FTIR analysis, actually ang sa FTIR analysis ang nakuha nako diri kay ang functional groups. So functional groups. And then acute oral toxicity dose determination. So ang akong nakuha po dinhi, syempre the toxicity dose of the two plants. Also, I have the IC50 and the antioxidant activity. I have also measured that one. And then microbiological and chemical testing, the bioremediation capacity, and for the SEM analysis, I have, hindi na siya makita. This is for the morphology and the particle size of the two plants. So sa na, wala din ako nabutang din. Okay, nakat na siya. So anyway, napa siya sa baba. Anti-angiogenic activity. So what is being measured here is the number of new blood vessels formed. So mo na siya ang dependent variables. Now, since na ako'y output, ngayon ako'y output din after kasi conducting all the tests, nag-formulate ko og T. So nahimo niyo siya og output lang nako. Nganong lahi iyahang shape o nganong naka-broken line siya. Ingon ko sa inyo naka-box, di ba, ang independent o dependent variable. Kani nganong lahi iyahang shape, naka-ingana siya, ang sa tawag ni kabalon sang tawag sa shape na. But anyway, og naka-broken line siya, that indicates na gihimo lang nako siya, pero wala nako siya gi-test. Meaning, after that dependent variables na mga testing, nagbuhat ko og T from the two plants. But the T is not being tested. Wala na ko gi-test for anti-angiogenic activity, wala na ko gi-test for all the other tests. Baliktad man gud siya, baliktad. Ang ako ang gi-test man gud for the dependent variables kay ang extract. So from the extract, I formulated the T. Ingani inyong buhaton class nga conceptual framework if you have the dosage form, pero the dosage form is not being tested. But if the dosage form is being tested, diri gid na siya sa independent variable. So that one is an example. I don't know if I have for the descriptive na study. Let me see first. Wait lang. I know. Wala dira. Let me look at na lang the studies of itong sa mga na-descriptive. Wala lang. Wait lang ha, kasi sa Gmail na ito nilagay. Sige, so this one. This one is a medtech study pero descriptive siya na study ha. So this is medical fake news and fear mongering during COVID-19 pandemic, the impact on the vaccine confidence among the millennials. Okay? So ang actually ang conceptual framework nakadepende pud na siya sa SOP ninyo. So, tanawon na to ang ilahang SOP. Ang ilahang SOP, we have here the study aims to determine the impact of the medical fake news and fear-mongering during COVID-19 pandemic to the vaccine confidence among the millennials in General Santos City. So, specifically, the study aims to answer the following questions. Una, diba, ingon ko sa inyo ang SOP sa descriptive always starts with the demographic profile, but for them, only the educational attainment, occupation, and family monthly income ang important na ma-establish. Is number 2, they ask for the level of influence of the medical fake news and fear-mongering sa mga millennials. And then number 3, ang ilahang question, is there a relationship between the medical fake news and fear-mongering during COVID-19 pandemic on the vaccine confidence? So sa question pa lang daan, nakita na ninyo unsa ang IV ug unsa ang DV. So ang independent variable nila, syempre si medical fake news and fear-mongering. And then, ang ilang dependent variable, syempre ang outcome ana. Kung naay fake news, ang effect atod sa vaccine confidence sa mga millennials. So let us see their conceptual framework. So si conceptual framework actually wala na nagipatanggal ding moderating variable nila. Wala old copy man gud ni siya, so wala siya na edit. So ang ilahang independent variable class, medical fake news and fear mongering. Tapos, pointing to their dependent variable, which is the vaccine confidence sa mga millennials. So, ilaha lang gi-specify unsa na mga butang ang ilahang gi-check. For example, sa medical fake news and fear-mongering, gi-specify nila na ang ilahang gi-measure for the medical fake news and fear-mongering kay ang perceived validity. So, unsay tan-aw sa mga respondents nila sa fake news. Kung they believe ba ato or wala, valid ba to or dili nga information. And then they check for the vaccine confidence specifically on the perceived susceptibility, benefits, self-efficacy, severity, barriers, and cues to action. So this is an example of a conceptual framework sa study nga descriptive. Just don't know if I still have more. I think napakuy isa. Let me check. Demographic. So another one. We have here another descriptive na study. Demographic profile and level of compliance to COVID-19 safety protocols. Muna ilahang title. Let us see their SOP. Ang ilahang SOP kay, syempre, demographic profile ang una. Then they established there the age, the gender, and the educational level. And then number 2, ang ilang pangutana is level of compliance sa mga respondents nila sa safety protocols. So number 3, is there a significant relationship between the demographic profile and the level of compliance among the respondents to COVID-19 protocols? Ang ato ang conceptual framework, ang basihan ana mostly ang kaning SOP nga inferential statistics ang gamiton. So relationship daw between the demographic profile and the level of compliance. So if we look at their conceptual framework, this one. Guba lang ang iyang kasi ang arrow na adto dito. But anyway, this is their conceptual framework. We have here the independent variable. Ang ilahang gi-check manggod kung naabay relationship ang demographic profile sa level of compliance. Therefore, ilahang independent variables are the demographic profile such as the age, the gender, and the educational level. So ang effect naaba ni siya relationship dito kay dependent variable, which is the level of compliance of the respondents towards COVID-19 safety protocols. So if you will be making your conceptual framework, always start with the determination of the IV and the DV. Okay, questions so far about the conceptual framework? You will just have to present it in a diagram form and then have a little explanation of what is written in the diagram. That's how you make the conceptual framework. Okay? And lastly, last part of our introduction, except for the review of the related literatures, is the scope and delimitation of the study. So from the name itself, scope and delimitation, meaning we will be establishing the scope, the area of coverage or boundaries sa research study. So unsa to siya in terms of the area. When you say area, that's the location, where are you going to conduct the study, the issues, the respondents, who will be your respondents, what issues are you going to address, the period of the study, so when are you going to conduct the study, that's the period, and the limitation or constraints of the study if ever meron. So again, how do you make the scope and the limitations? First, you have to have a brief statement of the general purpose of the study. Kanang general purpose or general objectives, ginaulit-ulit na siya class sa mga different parts of the paper. So we have to be reminded na mao gyud ni ang objective sa ato ang study. So even sa scope and delimitation, you still have to restate the general purpose of your study. And then another thing, the subject matter and topics studied and discussed, the local of the study, again, the area where are you going to gather the data, the population from which the respondents were selected. So, unsa ba inyong population? Mga high school students ba? Tanan ba na students sa GSD MSFI? If you are doing an experiment, then what animals are you going to use? Na ba may criteria sa pagpili sa ilaha? Adult lang ba? Or unsa ba nga babae or lalaki na mga animals? So you have to state that one sa scope and delimitation. And also the period of the study. Okay? If you also have instruments to be used, you have to state that also sa scope and delimitation. So for example, sa mga descriptive na study, if you are going to use a questionnaire, you also have to state in the scope and delimitations what kind of questionnaire are you going to use. Is that adapted from the other studies, or are you going to make your own questionnaire? For the experimental na study, if you have an instrument that is very important in the experimentation, then you also have to really place that one in the scope and delimitation. So this is an example of how you're going to make the scope and delimitations. This is not really a long one. Dili man ginataas ang scope and delimitations. All you need to do is first, again, diba, ingon ko, the objectives of the study. So as you can see on the first paragraph, we have here the objective of the study, and then the topics or the issues that are being investigated in the study, in the research. And then we have here the population or the respondents. So the respondents of the study will be the graduates of the BS Pharmacy in GSD MSFI from 2015 to 2020. So unsa nga tool ang gigamit? So the respondents will be asked to fill out the research instrument made by the researchers and validated by experts. So una siya for the quantity, pero duha man gud ni ako ang gigamit diri na tool. I have here the questionnaire and also the interview guide. And then lastly, you have there the study will be conducted. So that this is the local, the GSD MSFI, and then when am I going to conduct the study? So naay period din ha, December 2019 to August 2020. That's the format sa paghimo sa scope and delimitations. So please take note, class, when you say delimitations, the aim is to narrow the scope. Kasi dili manggutanan everything under the sun you are going to investigate sa inyong research. So you just have to delimit it. Unsa lang ang included sa inyong research. But if you are talking about the limitations aim to identify the potential weakness of the study. So basig na ay weakness, na ay mga butang na supposedly pwede nato siya ma-consider as very important things, but then dili siya included included sa atuang study. That's the difference between the delimitations and the limitations. So parehas sa sa study last time nila Miss Asano, naa sila'y limitations sa ilahang study. Ang limitation sa ilahang study, wala sila nag-identify og toxic dose. So nahimo na to siya weakness. Kasi when you are going to make a drug, the toxicity testing is a must. Kasi kailangan siya i-establish. Kaya lang for a certain reason, they were not able to do it. That is why it has become a limitation. Limitation siya, weakness siya sa ilahang study. Pero pag ang ato ang ginaistoryahan, the limitations, that's the aim is just to narrow down the scope of the study. Ang mga walay appeal, dili na nato sila i-appeal sa ato ang study. Okay, so I think that's it for the introduction. Any question? Anything that you would like to clarify? Or wala pa mo iklaro?
Ma'am, excuse.
Wala pa mo nagabuhat. Sige, you may just ask your advisors if abot mo sa time nga magbuhat na mo, especially sa part 2. Medyo mas madugo ang part 2 kaysa sa part 1. Ang madugo sa part 1, syempre, the introduction, but the hypothesis and the what's the other one? The SOP is not that really madugo. Ang part 2 lang. Yeah, sige. So, klaruhon na lang ninyo. Yes, Rylen. What do you want to ask?
Ma'am, sa SOP good ma'am, okay lang if walay mga sub sa every question na na-formulate? Halimbawa, directly lang ma'am. Halimbawa, for SOP is nag-create 3 ka question and then sa every, kumbaga, 3 question lang ang na-formulate. Hindi siya same sa katong, halimbawa sa number 1 na apay sub na question.
1.1, 1.2? Ano?
Opo.
Depende sa needs sa inyong study. Kamu man ang maka-identify if kailangan pa siya isa-isahon or pwede na siya sa isa ka question na lang. So, anyway, mabalaan man na, di ko ka-picture out. Di ko ka-tubag kay wala ko kabalo sa inyong question. Basahin ako ninyo isa ka question para matubag na ko siya kung need ba siya o sub-topics.
Halimbawa, ma'am, if ang ang score lang sa, halimbawa, certain na examination, like quiz sa research, ma'am. Halimbawa, if number 1 is kung sa ang score sa student sa quiz sa research, kailangan pa sub?
Pwede na dili nga na. I mean, pwede na dili, wala na sub na mga topics or sub areas. Pwede na kamo diretso. What is the mean score or what is the mean score of the student? What are the mean scores of the students in the research quizzes? Ano lang. Dili na kailangan og 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Ang kailangan og 1.1, 1.2, syempre ang demographic profile kasi you really need to state all the demographic profiles that you need to include in the study. Tapos, depende sa need pod. For example, kito akong gihatag sa inyo nga study manggod, kailangan dyan ako isa-isahon ang bawat areas sa pharmacology. So, mo to siya nga na siya sub-areas. Pero if ang inyong study wala ni kailangan ana, no need na pod. Okay? Anything else?
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Wala na. Statistical. Pwede man siya nga walay statistical data, you just have to present the current situation. Pwede mo maghatag og current situation sa kung namoy makita na international data unsa ilang ginahimo napod sa tibok Philippines, sa mga schools sa uban places sa Philippines, pwede ninyo himuon ang ilahang current na practice. Bisag wala siya statistical data. And then ang pinaka-important ang current situation sa school. Anything else? Wala na?